And for more on Assange's roller coaster year, I'm joined by Paul Craig Roberts, former Reagan administration official. Hey there, Paul. You know, we're looking back at the past year, as Julian Assange has really gone from celebrity and now to alleged criminal. What have been your observations about this man who's really become quite a character on the American landscape?
Well, he's a great threat because he does publish documents from the government, which reveals how sordid the government is. It's not like a pundit or a commentator speaking about the government. It's the government's own documents revealing its sordid behavior. So he is a very much a threat, and not just to the American government, but to the British government, to any number of governments. And so there is a concerted effort to nail him, to shut him up. If, in my opinion, if the legal attempt, which I'm certain the United States government is behind, if this fails, he'll simply be assassinated by a CIA assassination team.
Whoa. This ruling...
It's common practice for the CIA to do that. It's nothing unusual about it. The Congress has had many hearings in the mid-'70s, and it's in the public record that they're always assassinating people.
I guess you like to think as an American that you don't live in a country where that goes on, but perhaps that's a little ignorant.
I try to be realistic and aware of it.
I want to move on, though. I mean, this ruling today that came down in the British court, not a surprise, really, to most people. He plans to appeal, according to his lawyers. But a lot of people say that the U.S. might try to get in there now, that they might try to request his extradition to the United States. How can this happen? There's not even been any charges filed against him. These charges in Sweden are sort of, sexual assault, yes, but, they're with consenting partners who, sort of have changed their story a little bit. I'm wondering what you think about the attempt that could happen to get him to the United States where there's not even charges against him yet.
Well, I think that that's the purpose of all this. You see, the facts of the matter are that the Swedish prosecutors did look into the charges and they dismissed them as not credible. And of course, one reason they're not credible is that both of the women who seduced him are online bragging about their conquests. They had emails, it's on Twitter and Facebook, I believe, and many of their friends reported that the two women were bragging that they had seduced Julian Assange. And so what his real mistake was getting in bed with two women he didn't know. Somebody who is a boat rocker like him can't possibly let that happen because it's now cooked him, you see. And the prosecutor which reopened the case, no one knows really why, because the charges are merely misdemeanors. He's not accused of rape, despite all the headlines. He's accused after the event by the two women of having sex with him in ways that they didn't want, or something to that.
One of them said she was asleep, another said she was hoping that he would be wearing a condom, and he wasn't. But let's move on from the case itself and talk about this attempt to paint him as a rapist. This has really taken a lot of focus off of WikiLeaks itself in this attempt by various people, various governments, to paint him as sort of a villain. Talk about that.
Well, this is common practice. When you have someone you regard as dangerous to you and you don't really have a case against them, you slander them. And this is the way the United States Department of Justice generally works. It produces a lot. It uses the media to slander the victim so that the victim is guilty before he ever gets into a court. And so, in some sense, they would achieve their purpose, even if he wins the appeal, because he is now slandered. And the real questions will not get investigated. You see, what really needs to be investigated is why did this prosecutor reopen a case that Swedish prosecutors had already closed? Because there was no new evidence. In fact, the evidence that came out really didn't support the claims of the two women. And the other question is, how do you extradite somebody when there's no crime? But what the Swedish prosecutor is demanding is extradition so that she can interview him.
The
She
bottom
can do
line
that.
here seems to be, you know, where there's a will, there's a way. Sorry, we are out of time. Paul Craig Roberts, former Reagan administration official.